12th of January, 1984. Snow dust on stone steps. Viktor Malenkov pushes a mop bucket into a quiet corridor. He is a maintenance worker at a Moscow aerospace bureau. He is also a CIA source with the codename Lampmaker. His goal is sharp. Move stealth blueprints out without leaving a mark. He hides in plain sight because no one watches a janitor's route. The bucket wheels squeak. He listens for footsteps. One wrong move and the KGB will shut the door on him forever. On the 5th of March, 1981, he rides home on the tram with the stink of bleach on his coat. A man in a brown cap sits down, says nothing, and sets a folded map on the seat between them with a thin booklet tucked inside. The map traces his route in blue pencil, from his stop to the bureau and back. The booklet is a one-time pad. He knows the man has watched him. He knows the choices now. He slides the papers into his lunch sack and keeps his eyes on the window, then decides to accept. Lampmaker is the name they give him, written on the first line of a page he is told to burn. He works nights, so he touches rooms few are allowed to enter after dusk. That is the opening. He pushes his cart into drawing areas when the day staff are gone, and because mops belong everywhere, no one asks for lists. He studies the path with a clock cupped in his palm. He learns the guard's cigarette breaks, the moments when the corridor camera washes out under the red exit light, the seconds the stairwell is blind when the freight doors close. He sets his cleaning path to fold these gaps together into one quiet lane. Tools must not look new. He takes a standard wooden handle from the supply shelf and drills a channel down its center in his kitchen, 1 centimeter at a time, so the grain does not splinter. He shapes a small cavity at the base so a vial will nest and not rattle. He makes a cap from wax and shaves it smooth, then rubs it with grit so it looks like a factory plug. He runs hot water over the cap until his fingers ache, testing the seal again and again. In the morning light, the handle still looks like a handle. The camera fits inside a brush head he wraps in a rag that smells of ammonia. He places the head on a table, snaps the latch, and the lens looks up through the weave of cloth. He breathes slow, with his elbows braced so the frame does not shake. 1 page at a time, he slides drawings under the rag, centers the fields, and presses the silent trigger. Steady hands are the only edge he owns. When the roll is exposed, he coils the thin strip into a tiny vial, dries it with his sleeve, slides it into the hollow, and wipes the handle so the wood looks untouched. He moves like a man avoiding a spill. He rolls the bucket past the freight lift because the floor there is always slick and no one wants to test it. The lift leads to the subbasement, where the air hums with pipes. Down 2 flights, he parks by a chemical cabinet with a rusted hinge. The cabinet hides him from the guard's line of sight. He unscrews the cap, palms the vial, and tucks it behind a warm steam pipe. Heat dries the casing, and heat keeps it from sticking. When he leaves, he touches a chalk dot near the hinge, a clean, simple mark that says there is something to collect. At home after midnight, he tunes a shortwave set until the hiss snaps into a clipped voice reading numbers. He writes groups in a school notebook and opens the pad. The key words pull up tasks and times, a string of small requests that fit inside his routine. He sends back acknowledgments in short bursts with a tiny transmitter hidden in the shell of a radio beside his bed. He waits for the city to pull on power, when the grid pops and buzzes, and lets that noise cover him. The reply voice sometimes shapes its numbers into weather words. One week it uses the name of a lake he knows from a paper atlas and from old stories. He puts a finger on the map. The far shore is Finland. He decides that is where the other ear sits. He meets a man only when the plan cannot stretch around a problem. The man wears coveralls and a work badge for a power unit. He checks drains, taps on meters, and nods at pipes, then leaves a new pad inside a rag roll under the sink. The routine stays thin and fast. No talk in hallways, no talk at all when talk is not needed. Fresh vials appear in a mop bucket left near the service stairs. The fewer faces he has to hold in his mind, the better for both of them. On the 19th of May, 1982, a surprise locker check drags through the floor like a cold wind. A KGB man pulls open doors, dumps boxes, and taps wood for hollow spaces. He grips Viktor's mop handle near the base, then lifts it and knocks it on concrete. The sound is dull, wood on stone. Wax holds. The man snorts, leans the handle back in the corner, and reaches for the next lock. A coworker is taken aside for a banned magazine, so the building tightens. Because of that, Viktor lengthens his curve between pulls. He drops less, waits more, and staggers his signal marks so they do not fall on the same day of each week. When a new janitorial supervisor starts polishing the hinges where his chalk has been, he moves the mark to a scuffed spot on the door sill that only a man with a bucket would notice. In late 1983, badge readers appear near the blueprint vault, glowing small red coins beside the frame. The quiet gaps he counted slip. He adds 2 minutes to each pass to match the new check pattern. When a designer comes late with a stack of drawings, he takes his chance and rides his wheels behind her, close enough to pass the reader on her wake. That week he has a heavy roll. After the pickup, the numbers voice uses a phrase about good ice. He hears it as proof that the film came through clear and that the work has weight beyond his haul. He keeps to his map. By the end of the year, he has moved dozens of rolls, each the length of a finger, each cut and wound and hidden in the same stick of wood. His hands ache at night. He checks the cap twice before he leaves it in the closet, then checks again because habit is the only guard he trusts. The strain grows, but the surface stays calm. What he does looks like what he is paid to do. Water in a bucket, rags in a pail, a man moving his circle around the walls while no one watches. 4th of February, 1984. A signed-out drawing does not come back to its drawer when the shift ends. A red bulb above the vault door flashes and then stays steady. Guards lock the corridor and call upstairs. 2 men in dark coats arrive and take the ledger. Viktor watches ink lines and hears metal keys ring against the frame. Doors start to shut one after another down the hall. At dawn, he is on his knees near the vault, hands in gray water, lids lifted on floor drains so the running sound hides his presence. He wipes the baseboards and listens to names called into an office and the slow drag of chairs on linoleum. He puts each name with a face and a badge in his head and waits for his turn that does not come. That night, the number's voice does not speak at the hour he expects. The band is empty air and hiss. He waits another hour, then another, and almost gives up when a hard tone breaks in and a strange cadence follows. It is the emergency cue he was taught to note but never expected to hear. He writes the groups twice, checks the pad, and pulls a single line out of the jumble. Move to black ice plan and burn the rest. The words fit tight in his chest. He tears a page and feeds it into the stove. He does not rush. He slides each thin sheet into the flame one at a time until it is brittle and curls. When the covers are gone, he holds up one corner of border grid and keeps that sliver under his heel in the kitchen till it cools. He knows there is one more roll to move. He shoots it as he always does, slow hands and steady frame, and walks it down to the sub-basement. The chemical cabinet creaks and hides him from the guard's line. He lifts the pipe and leaves the vial in the warm cradle and then does a new thing. He rubs his sleeve over the chalk dot until the metal shows clean. If no signal stands, a casual eye will pass by. When he comes up, a plain sedan sits across from the gate, engine off. A man with the door cracked and a cigarette the color of apricot ash in the blue evening. The next night the same car is there with the same driver and the same half-open door. Viktor takes a loop he has practiced, into the kiosk, out past the trolley stand, back along the fence, until he sees the driver's head turn twice in the same way. Because the tail holds, he carries the mop handle out in a canvas tool wrap in pieces and dumps the wood into a black canal between barges at dusk. Each length sinks without a ripple. He does not want a face to hold in mind, but he gets one more. At the tram stop, the man in coveralls walks close, taps his own coat pocket as if checking for coins, and sits on the bench. When the brakes scream on the arriving tram, the man rises and leaves a folded strip map under the bench slat. Viktor counts to 5 and lifts it. The map shows a long lake west of the border north of Leningrad with a mark like a pinhead on the far shore. There is a small symbol in the margin and a simple note on the back edge in pencil he recognizes from training. 2 flashes. He understands it as a signal and as a promise. He goes home and sits in the dark with the map on the table and his coat over the window. On the 18th of February, he buys a ticket on a night train and then gets off one stop early so his name lands on the wrong line in the guard's book. He keeps to side roads and walks under trees when he can, hat pulled low, hands buried. He carries no film, no pad, no tools. There is nothing to take that could show what he was. He wears 2 pairs of socks and ties rags around his boots with twine to kill the sound they make on hard ground and to keep his feet as long as the cold allows. He measures distance with fence posts and light poles. When trucks pass, he turns his face and makes his back an unmarked shape. Before dawn on the 19th of February, he steps out onto the ice. The air burns his mouth and the skin inside his nose. The lake sings a long note under him, a sound that might be a warning or might just be the cold moving through the sheet. Somewhere behind, a dog barks. A light sweeps the first ranks of trees and he drops flat. Frost bites through his coat and into his elbows. He crawls until his arms ache and then rises into a careful walk, counting steps to keep a rhythm that will not crack the surface. A shot snaps and a chip jumps near his boot. He changes his line toward a low band of reeds float frozen in the distance. A faint light on the far shore answers him with 2 clear flashes and then goes still. The ice heaves once and then sighs. A seam opens ahead of his knee, and water climbs the fabric of his pants in a dark climb that makes his breath spike. He rolls, spreads his weight like a swimmer on his belly, and slides forward with his forearms in short bursts. A flare lifts the night from the tree line behind him, and the ice goes white like a workroom floor under strip lights. Every ripple shows. He drags himself into a shallow groove cut by wind where the shine is broken, and holds there as if inside a hallway line he has mopped for years. He moves that line toward the reeds, slow, steady, refusing the urge to hurry. At the reeds, two shapes pull free of the shadow and then become men. One takes his arm at the elbow and does not speak. They move as one toward a black shape with no markings. A door slides and heat breathes out from a small iron stove. The metal stings his hands in a good way. He sits and the van rolls. On the shore, low in the trees, a dark hut hums with a steady tone he knows from long nights at his own desk. Racks blink under cloth, no windows, just a slit of warmth under the eaves. He understands the other end of the voice has been here, sending weather words and lake names into his room in Moscow. In Moscow, a case file opens with his codename typed wrong on the first page, Lampmaker, and a list of small failures beside it. Two guards from his floor lose their posts and move to quiet jobs no one sees. The Bureau writes new rules that shift the surface of work. No janitor may work alone. Mop handles change to metal with solid cores. Closets grow locks and sign out logs for every rag and brush. Border troops walk the shore of a northern lake and find a broken ridge and one strip of rag frozen in it. They write that no body was recovered. The broadcast he used to wait for becomes a silent carrier for a week and then vanishes. The thin film he left behind before he walked onto the ice is copied and studied far away. Engineers there use the shapes to tune their tests against what they expect to face. He leaves no words behind, but the forms he carried in wood and water change how others draw their lines. In a small room near a northern lake, a heater hums where he first warmed his hands. The mop handle is gone, but the Bureau keeps a rulebook shaped by him. A case file sits in a drawer with his codename misspelled and a search log closed. The designs he moved in silence become models others test against, far from the corridor he cleaned. His path on the ice links a quiet life to shifts in how two air forces prepared for each other.